This is The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you beneath the reps and routines and into the raw, unfiltered stories of athletes, trainers, guides, and coaches who've battled through injury, burnout, and life's curveballs to come back stronger. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and every week we peel back the layers to uncover what really shapes a coach, the setbacks, the scars, and the rebuild. Because behind every strong body is a story of resilience. This is where vulnerability meets strength, where training gets personal, and where we stop pretending that we have it all figured out. If you're a trainer, athlete, or anyone who's been knocked down and fought your way back, you're in the right place. The Mindful Trainer, strip back the surface and train deeper. Subscribe now on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Let's get on to the show. Welcome to The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of athletes, coaches, trainers, and guides who have overcome challenges to reach their goals. I'm your host, Melanie Webb. And today we are putting the mindful in trainer with my special guest, I might add return guest, Jason Durtschi, a mental health therapist based in Portland, Oregon, and one of my closest friends. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Melanie. Glad to do this again with you.
So good to have you back. What's on your nightstand now? What are you reading?
Oh, let's see here. Well, I feel like we're at a book club and I'm like on Instagram. So I love Mark Nepo. Many of you have probably heard of him. The Book of Awakening was kind of his probably best known, and that's sort of a daily wisdom thing. I love that to start my day with something pithy and meaningful, and then often I'll pick a word from it or a phrase. If I'm on a roll, I don't do this every day. I don't, but that'll be my intention word for the day. It's called The One Life We're Given. It's awesome to read a page or two in the morning. Then this one as well, Full Catastrophe Living, Jon Kabat-Zinn. It's a classic. This one of the early mindfulness books that really kind of made it big. Definitely recommend it. So I got going.
Jon Kabat-Zinn is what's on my nightstand right now too. I recently discovered wherever you go, there you are.
All right. It's such like simple concepts, but that's one reason that they're so powerful. He really goes into specific, like hands-on. It's accessible, I think.
It's accessible. It's doable. For me, there's such small chapters that I can read one and feel very satisfied. I did my nightly reading before I go to bed. Well, Jason, we have been friends for nearly 25 years. Can you believe that?
That's wild. 2 decades. It just keeps going strong.
2 decades, 2 coasts. We met while we were both young professionals living in Washington, D.C.
You were more professional than I was at the time. I think I was tempting to start out at that moment. But
Is that right?
yeah, but we definitely had shared community all the way back then, which was very telling, I think, about how we connect and have continued to.
We did. That's right. What stands out to you about that time and place in our lives?
Right after college, right? I had just graduated.
Because I remember I had been in the workforce for a while, and that's how I landed there.
You hit the ground running and went straight to the big wigs. Definitely a different culture, right? You and I have talked about this, but it's Washington, D.C. and different than New York. A lot of similarities, but just capitalism gone wild. I won't say that's negative or positive either way. But the bureaucracy, the dropping names, and it's a very striving energy, which was exhausting for me after a little bit. I love the city. I do love how many professionals are there. It's highly educated folks, and I have great memories from there. The farmers markets, biking around the Smithsonian, amazing.
For me, it was a very formative time. I spent 7 years there, and it was a place for me to learn a lot about what makes the country tick, rather than just function off my own ideas and opinions, and I actually was a bureaucrat for 1 year. Yeah, well,
Glad we shared that experience.
it's important, I think, especially when you leave a place. You and I both have made our way back out west, which is where we're originally from, and feel most alive. And for me, it's like how can I manage what I want to do in my life without being drained by the energy of the place around me? I'm enlivened by the more natural landscapes versus the more people populated landscapes. But like you said, I found it really invigorating and exciting to meet people from all walks of life doing so many interesting things.
I'll be honest, I miss that in Portland. I love Portland, Oregon. It's way more beautiful and charming and peaceful than many people believe now. It's just a little word for Portland, but yeah, I feel completely different out here than in DC. I felt alive in a different kind of way out there, and you can probably relate. Just being in that fast-paced, really sharp kind of environment, we learned where to find our life experiences, and not to toot our own horns, but I think you and I have really committed to that over the years. Who we are, just curious and seeing what's out there.
On our first episode, you shared about your own experiences. We're going to get to experience you with your professional hat on today. I want to talk about mindfulness and taking this concept into reality. You're going to share an exercise that you actually do with clients that can help us learn to be mindful. You know, in my work at Webb, well, I probably talk about mindfulness, and my method of doing that is through people's bodies, through movement when I'm working one-on-one with a client in the studio or outside. And I have a series of recordings of breath work. You have some simple tools that actually help your therapy clients apply that wisdom in the heat of the moment. Can you share some of those with us?
Of course. I think that you explain mindfulness in a way that makes a lot of sense and is accessible. And that somatic body piece is so important, as you know, better than anyone. Um, I think with a lot of therapeutic techniques, there's a lot of crossover. Most professionals find their own version of it. This is one I call sensory switching. So if we're feeling activated, if we're feeling anxious, or feel like we need a little kick to our day to focus more, it's simple. You focus on breathing as an anchor to ground us in the moment. Abdominal breathing, where you inhale and our abdomen actually comes out, distended, and then fills up kind of from the bottom up is one way that I look at it. Sometimes it's nice to almost kind of exaggerate it a little bit. You actually bring your entire torso, neck, and head up just slightly with the inhale, and then exhale, and the opposite, kind of bring it down a little bit. Definitely being mindful of shoulders, especially. So we, of course, hold a lot of our stress, and then our bodies and brains are constantly mirroring each other, right? So it's sometimes it leads with the body, sometimes our anxious thoughts manifest physically, right? So it kind of works both ways. So shoulders down as best we can. And then I like this exercise because you can do it sitting, you can do it during a meeting, of course, more subtly. You can do it wherever you're being or feeling activated. And walking is usually how I do it. I think that, especially in a natural setting outside, and then you just go through the different senses. So, starting with inhale, exhale, do that a few times as you're walking slowly and mindfully, not really getting a workout, not looking at it in terms of exercise. Although you can certainly take your morning walk and do this. I love to do that too. And then, so I usually start with auditory or audio, any of the sounds, natural, human-made sounds, the whole soundscape, and maybe 10 breaths. I find personally that it can be helpful to have a specific amount of, to have some structure within it. It helps the way my brain works. It helps to ground me in that so I don't lose track. Also, with this, at any point, we notice ourselves stepping out of presence, which isn't if, it's sort of a when situation. Not good or bad, it's just information, right? Then coming back to the breath, and we might even forget which sense we're focusing on. Just pick a sense and pick up from there. So sound, then I'll switch to visuals, look at forms, right? If I'm in nature, I look at like the tree forms, I look at the different colors. So you can, even within that, you can kind of focus on different things. And then I'll do just somatic. So just kind of noticing really being in my body with more consciousness as I'm walking, noticing the weight of gravity on my arms, or noticing posture, feet hitting the earth, all of that, just really attuning to that. Those are the main ones that I find most accessible. Sometimes I think going into the cognitive realm can also be helpful. I do this a lot when I'm trail running, is just not listening to music and seeing what comes up mentally for me. You could say cognitive behavioral therapy is what that would be based on, sort of, but with mindfulness. Just noticing when that comes up and going back again to the anchor. I would say that piece of the review, auditory, visual, somatic, our body, physical piece. cognitive, if we notice it, whatever it is that's coming up, allowing for all of that. You could do that anywhere from one round of that, 10 breaths roughly. Get caught up in the exact numbers. I think that might be distracting, but the spirit of it. And I notice with clients and with myself, it helps to, there's a lot of reasons why I think it works. It's healthy distractions, right, from the chatter. Definitely that brain body connection, groundedness. I notice there's also gratitude that's kind of underlying, maybe in the sense of, especially in nature, is just attuning more to everything that's there, which often we sometimes don't even notice it because we're so caught in our heads. Anyway, that's kind of an overview of sensory switching.
I remember you introducing me to that when we went on a camping trip to southern Utah a couple of years ago.
I remember that.
I'll try to put sensory switching into practice on a fairly regular basis. This was a great review for me because you're going to laugh at me, but every once in a while I'll think of it as using my five senses and I'll think, what am I tasting right now? Nothing. I'm just outside walking. So I appreciate the review because I don't think the tasting was
Taste
one
might
of your
be
elements.
harder to access. Of course, you could chew some gum, put some hot tamales in your mouth. Whatever, any of the senses, whatever. But definitely, if there's more content, it's probably more helpful.
Whatever is conducive to the environment that you
Yep,
are in, right? For
yep, right,
safety.
totally.
Sensory switching is a facet of your applied awareness concept. Can you talk us through that, the different aspects of applied awareness? And
Yeah,
we just went deep in one of those aspects, I realized. So we're going to back out of that and take us up to a higher view.
yep, love to. So mindfulness, will distill it to the basics because it is a simple concept, not easy, right? Because our brains are not wired that way always to stay in presence. So the two arms or two parts of mindfulness, essentially being aware and not judging ourselves, or right. So it all comes back to that, right? So when we're noticing distraction, that's the awareness, right? And then okay, noticing when there's a judgment, because there often will be. And then going back to, okay, it's just a thought, just information about where my head's at, where my body's at. And so that's kind of that applied awareness. That's sort of what we mean by that. The application being the self compassion, and then also any kind of positive intentional action. I think we talked about 3 A's maybe is one way to look at it. And it might sound a little gimmicky, but I think it's a good way to keep in mind to have some kind of structure for mindfulness. So the first A would be, it could be different things. You could say acknowledge or awareness. The second A would be acceptance. We'll say aware, accept, and then application. And the application could be sensory switching once we're aware of where we're at without judgment. It could just be that's enough just to be aware, and that can really ground us. So the A is optional, the third A. But often, a few breaths or even some distractions, if that's the place that we need to start. Any kind of neutral distractions that are not going to be to create more chaos for us. If that makes sense.
I love it. And I grabbed onto something you said early in your explanation. It sounds like judgment is normal. So if I have this little voice in my head that's a little critical and judging me, that's normal. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, it's a sign that you're a Homo sapien having a moment. That's what our brains do, right? It's amazing how they kind of work against our own well-being and happiness sometimes. And so it's kind of harnessing that and working with it, not like an angry harnessing. It's like okay, having a moment here, right? Keeping levity, keeping some sense of humor and awareness that we're just human, beautiful, messy humans.
Yes, which you're so good at introducing the humor. Jason has a very dark sense of humor, which always cracks
When
me
you've been
up.
in healthcare for a while, that's sort of what happens. We kind of bond, the nurses and social workers and therapists.
You do.
But yeah, totally, it's a thing. But no, it's all in good fun, and it's kind of that connection of like, wow, being human is such a wild experience, right? So it's not about judgment as much as just kind of that curiosity of like, wow, the stories and the things that humans are capable of is pretty amazing sometimes.
The stories we tell ourselves, and sometimes when
That too, for sure.
I'm paying attention, I can be good at saying just a thought. That was just a thought, right? That's my monkey mind brain doing what my
Yeah.
monkey mind brain does.
Yeah.
It's up there like woo woo,
Yeah.
bouncing around side to side. I
Right.
remember learning that analogy. It was helpful.
Definitely. No, that's awesome. Anytime we can do that, anytime we notice what's going on, have a moment of presence. Sometimes I'll just I'll just take literally one or two full inhale and exhales when I have those moments of presence. If you break down our days, there's relatively few moments where we're conscious, right? Where we can step outside and have that meta awareness or consciousness, mindfulness, essentially. So it's and celebrate any moment, mark it with a couple breaths.
Oh, I like that. To celebrate a moment and mark it with a couple of breaths.
Yeah, those
Breath
moments
being,
of mindfulness.
yeah, like the breath being something that we don't really have to think about. Those of us who
Right, exactly.
don't
That's
have
the
to think
irony,
about
right?
that.
We're doing it anyway. But I think mindful breathing is more effective, I guess you could say, when we get all that oxygenation and kind of that, all about this. And I would love to hear more sometime about your breath work and that whole piece.
I do love it. Well, yes, for another time, because
For
my
sure.
friends, Jason's going to be back on the show. Jason and I have talked about how to share our connection and our passion of health and wellness with others. So this is just the beginning. I want to thank you for walking us through applied awareness. That sensory switching exercise is phenomenal. All of this will be in the show notes on the website for everyone to share or to experience. And Jason, before we go, can I ask you to share how others can connect with you or even possibly work with you?
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. The best resource is just my website. So Tree of Life Counseling and Coaching.com. And my contact information is there. Feel free to email, that's there too. And then there's resources there on the website as well for literature related to mental health and mindfulness, and then a little bit about my story and kind of, I try to keep it transparent and be as human as possible as a therapist, because that's what we all are. But anyway, my approach is a little bit more transparent so my clients know what they're getting themselves into, right? The fit is so important. You always hear that. The research really points to that usually here around 70% maybe of the effectiveness of psychotherapy relates directly with the relationship between the client and therapist.
That is very high percentage. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you'll hear different numbers, but a large part, which makes sense, right? We're only going to share as much as we feel safe and connected.
Yes. Well, Jason, being a close friend of yours for 20 years, I can only imagine the benefit if I were to be sitting in that client therapy chair in your office
Thank you,
right
Melanie.
now. Thank
Sweet
you for
of you
being
to
such
say.
a dear friend. Thank you for
Likewise.
being here on the show. I look forward to having you back.
You too. We'll see you. Bye, everyone.
Well, dear listeners, it was fun for me to get to bring one of my closest friends on the show to share his applied awareness method. I think you can see why I love Jason so much and why I look forward to having him back again and again. I'm going to be diligent about putting his applied awareness method into practice, and I'd love to hear how you choose to implement sensory switching. So stay connected. Receive updates on future episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and additional resources. Visit webbwell.com. That's WEBBWELL.com. And sign up for my newsletter. I also want to invite you to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, it informs how I program, who I invite as a guest, and it also fuels our mission to explore the intersection of mental and physical health. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.